Hello and welcome to the biggest live panel show on the MUFC internet. Of course it is, and that's just for the person out there who decided to jump on all of our tweets earlier on. This is all for United. This is Wall of Reds. Actually, no, I'm going to do this whilst I'm talking because otherwise you can't see my face. This is Wall of Reds. Thank you for jumping on with us this evening. We want to get your thoughts in the live chat as we talk about loads of different things with a number of different Reds. We're going to be chatting about the win against Brighton, VAR and the handball rule. I'm sure will come up at some point. We need to discuss our defence and Paul Pogba. We need to talk about the last week of the transfer window. So get in that live chat and join in the show because we have got a number of Reds with us tonight. Hopefully Larry from the United Pubcast over in Australia is going to jump in at some point as well. We've also got Mark, we've got Keane, we've got Rob, we've got Usman, we've got Barry, and we've got Matt on tonight as well. Lads, I think we'll do what we do always, and we'll come over to each of you first so you can have your say and your input on our first talking point, and that is the win against Brighton. Mark, we seem to always start with you, mate. This is turning into like a trend now. Let's get your first 90 seconds on United yesterday and that dramatic win.
Daylight robbery, wasn't it really? We were very, very fortunate to come out with any points at all. I think our defence struggled again. Matic obviously came in and I think he sort of steadied the ship a little bit. Not enough going forward. And yeah, I think that's probably, since the McTominay goal against Man City, the most I've celebrated for a very long time. Bit of a strange rule. But obviously that's been input and we've got to follow it, unfortunately. Sometimes it might go with us, might go against us, but I think that we really need to work on our defending. I think that Mason probably should have come back to cover. I don't really blame Aaron Wan-Bissaka too much. I think that Mason should have tracked back and defended, and we might have had that man covered. But yeah, very, very lucky. Hopefully this will be a bit of a confidence booster for everybody. We get some more minutes in training. It's more minutes in the legs again, but we just look incredibly unfit at the moment. So disappointing, but we got the 3 points, and that's what matters at the end of the day.
And I mean, you was in such hysteria that you've forgotten there was actually Bruno Fernandes who didn't track back and not Mason Greenwood.
Yeah, I was about to say, yeah. It wasn't... I don't agree with that comment anyways, to be honest, but regardless of which
we'll come over to you in a minute, Edwards, man. We'll kick off the boxing match right now. We're only 2 minutes into the show. Let's not start ganging up on each other yet, guys. We're friends until at least the 10th minute. Come on. Usman, I'll come over to you, bro, but first I'm going to go over to Keane. Keane, let me get your 90 seconds first to 2 minutes on yesterday's win.
So I think like yesterday, it was just the whole world with a wind of emotions as a Manchester United fan yesterday. It was kind of all up and down in terms of the game. Like you kind of seen again where our weaknesses are in the defence, especially at centre back again. You know, Victor Lindelof kind of showed again. You know where he's showing his weak points and highlighted where Eric Bailly needs to come into this defence. Again, I think Aaron Wan-Bissaka got a bit of stick yesterday for coming in, to try cover for Lindelof, but again, he had to do it because of the whole situation with Lindelof. So again, I was happy to see Bruno again get on the score sheet. He is contributing a lot since he's come in as well. And it is great though. We got the 3 points. We can kick on now to the Brighton game in the League Cup during the week, and then again next week against Spurs, which is a massive game in their season already at this early stage.
Yeah, we definitely have to chat about Tottenham a little bit later on because it looks like a certain Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is living a little bit in Mourinho's head, rent-free at the moment as well, after looking at that the pre-match and post-match comments. Rob, thank you for joining us. I know you're doing quite a few different YouTube bits. You've been on with Usman recently, and we've seen you out and about chatting to different channels, which has been great. Been hearing some of your stuff and a big fan of your work anyway. So it's good to have you on. And your thoughts on the win against Brighton, please, mate.
It's 3 points, and that's all that matters. I think at the moment we can see that Manchester United have got fitness issues. They're short of a pre-season, and that shows on the pitch. No real surprises. I think we knew what Brighton were going to do. They're a team that go really well back to front, and they started their season really well. But I think with United, it's just a case of getting through these first maybe 2 or 3 weeks, getting some miles back in the legs and winning points. And if you can do that at this stage, then you're okay. I don't think there's too much analysis that you can really look at the team when they're still trying to fight for fitness.
Yeah, 100%. We'll definitely come back over and chat about fitness because Wolves and City in quite horrible style today have faltered. And I think it's pretty interesting because on Breakdown and Banter yesterday, Abdel was talking about the fact that everyone in the comments were like, but City and Wolves look fit and United don't. Yet all of a sudden, they've both had a mare this weekend. So we definitely need to chat about that. I'm just going to jump over to some comments, man, before we come over to you. Reece says, wasn't the best overall performance. Defence was shaky again. Midfield was sluggish and the front three had no movement. Second half was slightly better. However, we won. Van der Beek should have started. Rich Sports says Bay should have started. Reese back in with, regardless of yesterday's performance, we won the game. We move on. Get your thoughts in the live chat, by the way, guys. If you're not watching on YouTube, come over to youtube.com/all4united. By the way, everyone watching right now, smash a like on this video. Make sure you share it as well and get in that live chat as we talk. And we're having all different opinions. Want to hear yours too. Usman, let's come over to you, buddy. A win's a win, of course. We won the game. What are your thoughts on the win?
Yeah, obviously the performance was far off the pace, to say the least. Mark said daylight robbery. I'd go as far to say that's probably the biggest snatch and grab I've ever seen a Man United team do in my entirety of being a fan. I haven't seen us play that badly and win the game. If we drew the game, I would have thought we robbed him. The fact that we've actually got the 3 points is unreal. There's a lot of negatives to take from the game. However, the positive, and I've said this already to Rob on my podcast, is the fact that, as a football fan, when that goal went in from Solly March, 2-2, 30 seconds on the clock, and somehow the players showed unbelievable character to keep their heads and just go forward and get the winner. So I've got to have some form of positive there. But in terms of the performance on individual level, it's been terrible, hasn't it? Come start of the season, I'm hoping that once the fitness is up, back and running, that we'll see our post-lockdown form come to fruition again, because we've got a very important October, so they need to fix up quickly.
Fix up, look sharp, definitely. Barry, thank you for jumping in, mate. We missed you last week. Sorry that I missed you off my list, my bad. It's great to have you on in your amazing room, which you on a YouTube channel have gone and given everyone a tour of. It looks great, mate. At Doc United, go and follow Barry. It's just brilliant. I take it, Barry, you loved our Jimmy Murphy special one. Have you caught it yet? If you haven't, you need to go and check it out, because the guys on there from the Manchester Munich Memorial Foundation, brilliant. Thank you, mate. Yeah. Unsung hero, perfect. But into the current day, let's chat about yesterday. What were your thoughts? I bet you went crazy when that winner went in.
Yeah, well, the record book will show that we got the 3 points, which I guess is what mattered. As the other gents have mentioned, we look completely unfit because we haven't had a pre-season. But just look at what happened to Wolves and Man City today, and you can see what's happened to the clubs who had to play so deep at the end of last season, no pre-season. I was amazed that Lindelof started the game. To be fair, didn't really do much wrong in this game. But what was glaringly obvious all game is that Brighton was so good down their left flank, and we were leaving it exposed for the entire game because Wan-Bissaka was drawn infield. And I would have thought that the coaching staff would have done something about that during the game. I think we must praise Bruno, because Bruno had a role to play in all three of our goals, and ice in his veins to slot that penalty at the end. So credit to him, after he was responsible really for the equalising goal that Brighton got in because he was ball watching. Let's say Paul Pogba looks woefully short of match fitness. So midfield, we were short. They tended to boss the midfield quite a lot. And a moment of brilliance from Marcus Rashford. So at the end of the day, 3 points gained, but a tough game. And I have to say, probably the biggest steal since the Great Train robbery.
You said that in a tweet as well, which I think summed it up really nicely. And it's funny you say there about Bruno leaving the man. I know, man, you want to say something on this in a minute as well. But also gave away the penalty, didn't he? Let's not forget that as well.
In all 5 goals.
Yeah. Literally influential in all 5 goals. So let's come back on to that. Guys, get your comments in whilst we're chatting. I want to first come over to a new member on the channel. Matt is with us. Matt, it's good to see you with the zebra kit. I think the only other person with that. Rob said he likes it. Barry bought it before it was even out. Tell us how that's possible. We don't know. But still, what did you make of the win yesterday? Was the only down point that we didn't do it in that kit?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it should have been all about the kit. If I'm honest with you guys, I think with the rest of the chaps, very disappointed that Bailly didn't start. I think Lindelof creates an element of uncertainty in the back line. You know, we had a good defensive record last season, and I get that, but I think when Bailly is fit, in a one-on-one defender, he's up there and probably our best one-on-one defender that we've currently got. I take the positives, bit like Rob really. It's a fantastic win. It's a great win. It's away from home. I think it's the first comeback win away from home under Ollie, so we've got to take that as a little bit of progress. We are off the pace, make no bones about that. We're absolutely off the pace. But you know what? When you're off the pace and you can deliver 3 points, there's a lot of teams this weekend in the Premier League that would have taken that. and we need to just take it and move on to the next game. For me, one of the frustrations has to be for me whenever Ollie tries to shut up shop with 10-15 minutes to go, it never works. He's done it 4 or 5 times in the last 12 months, and it always lets us down. Do you know what? We're just not good enough to do that. So let's not. But you know what? 3 points. Good weekend for us United fans. Certainly a better weekend than most, and we just move on to the next game.
Do you know what? It's really funny that you say that about him shutting up shop, and you're chatting about it there. Yeah, because Southampton didn't work out, and obviously we had the injury, so that obviously didn't help. But he went completely defensive even before the injury came in. And then it was probably Sheffield United away at Usman's favourite club, I think, was the other one where we went and shut up shop. And you're not wearing the kits there, are you, mate?
No, I've written it today already.
Had to get it in somewhere. Hello to Russell, who's on and he's had a mare this evening, lads. I've just been sat in tomorrow's chat and waiting for the show to start. FML, if that's not Russell all over, I don't know what is. Hello as well too. If we've got any more chats in here, come and get them in. Suzanne's in as well. Hello, Suzanne. Max making a point as well that Bayern Munich had a nightmare result today as well.
Well,
so
Dortmund lost today as well. Yesterday, sir.
Yeah, Dortmund lost yesterday as well, which definitely means Sancho's coming. Like 100%. Like, that's all we need to take away from that. And again, Rich just got, at least we got 3 points after playing rubbish. So let's reflect on some of those points. The lad just spoke a bit about the defence. We'll come back to that. Mark, let me come over to you first. Just want to quickly hit on a couple of words you mentioned, the fact that it was a robbery. So just quickly, I suppose, in our last word on Brighton as such, was there anything that they particularly done well against us that sort of stopped us from playing? Or was it more of the fact that United just didn't turn up really for large parts of the game?
I think a bit of both, really. I thought that Brighton knew that we were a bit shaky in defence. We haven't really got 2 stable defenders at the minute. So they came at us. You know, they've got some quick players down the wings and as strikers. So a bit of that, but yeah, I mean, I've said this so many times and started to sound like a broken record, but we look incredibly unfit, and everyone was jumping on our backs, and not really the same has been said about Man City and Wolves until today. So I think a bit of both, really. We've still got to get some minutes in the legs, and I just hope that we can get that. I think Rob was absolutely right. I think we've got to wait another 2-3 weeks, get some more games going. Hopefully the training sessions sort of pick up a bit. But Brighton were very good. I think we were a little bit concerned. We had the chat the night before that they would come at us, and that's exactly what they did. And we were very, very lucky to get away with it. But I think there's a lot wrong at the moment, and fitness is definitely #1 priority at the minute.
Yeah, Rob, I'll come over to you on this. Mark mentions then about the fitness. We obviously saw, as we mentioned, Bayern was mentioned a minute ago, Wolves and City horrendously falter. We've also obviously seen Chelsea had a bit of a shock result there against West Brom as well, although they came back into it. Do you think that the next 10 games are going to be really... I know they say that the league's never decided after 10 games, but do you think they're going to be 10 games of sort of shock results? And we could even see, like, when it comes down to it, the lowest points totals when it comes to this league this season, because there's like so many teams and so many clubs. There's peaks and troughs at the moment, isn't there? Because of the fitness levels are so all over the place.
Yeah, I think you're going to see any of the teams that were in the kind of deeper stages of the Europa League and also in the Champions League last season, they're going to struggle in the first month of football. Now, people are saying about Manchester United. I think when you look at us and you kind of look at our fitness levels, this could go on for another 3 or 4 weeks because they've had no pre-season. They need the games. And unfortunately, I know the judgment is wild at this stage and any bad performance is going to be ripped apart. But United just simply haven't got the strength in depth in terms of rotating the squad, and if you haven't got the fitness, then it's going to show up in performances and you might lose. We've seen that with Manchester City today, we saw it with Wolves, and we saw it with Bayern Munich, the champions of Europe, got hammered 4-1 today. So I think for United this could be a kind of continuing saga, and we may be talking about it again.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, really interesting, isn't it? Because when you say there 3 or 4 weeks of this, we're all going to be tearing our hair out when it comes to, a few weeks after the international break. Let's just hope, because we've got quite a few internationals in our squad, that they can all get game time as well during that international break, which I still don't understand why that's even happening. What's the point? I don't get it. Usman, I want to come over to you here, mate, because I know you want to make a point in a minute on the, and we'll come back to that when we talk about defence, on the goals, so to speak, or even the third goal. Yeah. But quickly, lots of fans out there saying, how can you celebrate a win after playing so badly? Talk to those people for me, bro. Talk to them.
How can you celebrate a win after playing so badly? 3 points on the board, that's how you celebrate it. At the end of the day, look, it's the first 2 games of the season. For me personally as a fan, of course we want to see good football, but the only thing that matters on the early stages of the season is getting points on the board. As Rob alluded to in terms of fitness, there's been so many shock results. You've already mentioned Chelsea. Chelsea drew 3-3 on another day. They would have lost that. Bayern Munich lost. Dortmund lost. Man City have lost. Wolves have lost 4-0 to West Ham, a team that's managed by David Moyes. If that doesn't suggest that something at the moment isn't right with teams in terms of preparation, then I don't know what will. For me personally, like I already mentioned, the only thing that matters at this early stage is getting the points on the board. Yes, the football needs to improve. However, give it time. It's been 2 games. And as always, we need to be a bit patient with the football. It's going to come.
Yeah, 100%, definitely. And as I think Terry from the Football Terrace tweeted, if you didn't celebrate that win and go batshit crazy when that goal went in at the end of the game, you are not a fan. You might follow the team, but you are not a fan, because that was some way to win the game. And I think also I listened to TalkSport afterwards, and they were describing it as that will go down as an iconic game in English football history because of what happened, because of VAR and because of the way that handball came out, and we won it. So at least we're on the winning side and not the losing side of it, of course. Could you imagine? I want to come over now and chat about the defence quickly, and I want to come over to you first, Barry. You mentioned then a little bit about the shock of seeing Lindelof start. So look, instead of digging too deep into his individual, well, I suppose you can do that as well. Does he start for you against Spurs, or do you make changes?
I make changes, and in fact, what's hard to understand is that last season only City and Liverpool had marginally better defensive records than we had, and we are kind of playing with our chosen back 4. And for me, Lindelof has always looked a bit vulnerable. As a centre back, you want a guy who gets stuck in, a no-nonsense fellow. And really, I think that Maguire, well, the jury's out on him in many respects. I think he's terrific, a little bit slow. You need a guy, like we've had these wonderful centre-back partnerships, Ferdinand Vidic, Stammen Johnson, Bruce and Pallister. You want stability at the back. And for me, Lindelof has always looked vulnerable. He's vulnerable over with the high ball. He always backpedals when somebody runs at him. And I know that at Benfica, he kind of played at times as a defensive midfielder, maybe be better suited there, but he certainly wouldn't be my first choice centre-back. But I'm just struggling to understand why we are looking so vulnerable defensively. Is it because the holding midfielders are not protecting the back 4 as they did last season? I'm scratching my head with respect to this. And, to hear the manager say at the end of the game, which I guess he has to say, we've got lots of centre-backs and he's comfortable in that area, I don't think he believes what he says to us with respect to that.
Yeah, or maybe as well, he knows that he can't address that this transfer window, so he's got to put confidence in what he has as well, I think. A view there on Lindelof, there from Barry Keane. For you mentioned about Eric Bailly, so do you want to take the floor on Eric Bailly? Why do you think Eric Bailly should be starting games regularly now, should we say, at centre-back over potentially Victor Lindelof?
Well, look, if Eric Bailly can stay fit, then by all means, he should be in the back 4, because look, at the end of the day, his style would absolutely complement Harry Maguire. Like where Harry Maguire is great in the air and reading the game and playing out from the back, he lacks pace and he does get turned quite easily. If you have a player like Eric Bailly who can mop up in that position, then by all means, you have a solid partnership there and there's balance there. Whereas you have Victor Lindelof, who is kind of the same style as a Harry Maguire, it's not going to work and it's not going to have balance. And again, like Lindelof is very soft. Like you can't, I don't believe, like even as a Manchester United defender, but even a Premier League top 6 defender, he doesn't get into any of the other teams. Again, if I actually had personal preference, if he's back fit and firing, Axel Tuanzebe would actually be my choice. But like long term to win beside Harry Maguire, I think he probably would be, look from a long term perspective, probably my choice to win there beside Maguire.
Yeah, I mean, good points made there, Keane. Matt, you were nodding away there to Axel Tuanzebe. Do you want to hit on a bit on a potential Tuanzebe and Maguire partnership?
Yeah, I think that's why Ollie's not so keen to rush into the market for a centre back. I think he's been a little bit frustrated over the last 6 to 9 months that Axel's not been available through injuries and whatnot. And for me, he's our long-term successor in there to go in next to next to Maguire. And I think in the meantime, it's got to be Bailly next to Maguire. I agree with everything we've just been said about Lindelof. He's not dominant in the air. He's not great on the ball. He's not ferocious in the tackle. And, you know, we've talked about some fantastic defensive partnerships from the past. I just wonder which person signed off the check and said, yeah, he's on a par with some of those guys, because he's a million miles away. And, you know, we mentioned they're not getting into another top 6 side. I'd go as far as to say a top 10 side. He's nowhere near at the right level. But for me, I honestly think Ollie's waiting on Axe to be ready. But in the meantime, we've got to get Bailly in next to Maguire.
Yeah, very good point. I know we're not really previewing Tottenham, but I think he'll go through at the back against Tottenham anyway. We're just used to him doing that against top 6 sides, so I'm expecting to see it anyway. But Rob, let me come over to you quickly. We've got a comment here that I'd love your reaction to. Charlie's gone, to be honest, I think Maguire looks just as vulnerable as Lindelof. Is this a fitness thing? Because he didn't for the majority of last season when we was in the middle of the season, just after COVID, I suppose, and lockdown coming in. He had a few shaky moments for the final 6-7 weeks of the season, and he's started the season slowly, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has, and I think Maguire's every bit as slow as Lindelof, and that's part of the problem. But I think the wider issue is that Lindelof is the issue as far as being a partner for Maguire. If you buy a centre-back for £80 million, he's going to play. So it's about how do you rectify that issue in the short term. There's no doubt, I think Bailly would have started the game against Brighton, but he did have a knock against Luton, and the feeling was that he could probably sit on the bench and give a small cameo at the end, which is exactly what happened. So I think for Ole, that's the kind of his get out and why Bailly didn't start. But United, I think long term, do see that Maguire will partner Tuanzebe and potentially Mengi going forward. So you've got 3 primary centre backs there. And plus, United have got a ton of centre backs that he needs to get rid of. So that's really where it comes to with the transfer window. And I think we'll see a couple leave probably before October the 5th.
I hope so. We need to get some players off the book. Guys, those of you watching right now, hit that like button and make sure you hit subscribe as well. If you all hit subscribe, I mean, I know there's return viewers and stuff, but we'd be so close to 1.2k. So please hit that subscribe button. Wilson says one thing that kind of helped our defensive record last season was because we played with 5 at the back and 2 defensive midfielders helping out at the back, but we played 4 at the back. Lindelof and Maguire don't work. What else have we got here? Just going through. I think there's one here on I love the Bailly Rojo partnership. 2 madmen. Yeah, but the problem is they can't play football. That's a worry. Hello to Maguire. Hello to some Jay who says, why Maguire? He hasn't exactly done that great at United. Why are we backing him? Well, I think one of the big things is the fact that he's our captain. He has that extra quality there that Lindelof clearly doesn't have, and that's as a leader. I think that you can't just take out your £80 million signing, as Rob's just said. You've got to back him, and you've got to hope that we see the best out of him, because when we did last season, we kept clean sheets, and defensively we were quite stable. We had our problems from set pieces, but we weren't looking as shaky as we have looked potentially for the last 8 weeks. So we've just got to hope, 8 weeks of football that is, that we recapture that form. I think I've answered that question for everyone. I hope I have anyway. And I just want to get over to one last comment from Russell. He says, I think Maguire looks vulnerable because he needs someone with pace next to him. Look at Vidic and Ferdinand. They complemented one another. Just go by Upamecano. I think we'll talk about transfers in a bit, mate, but I definitely think he looks like the perfect solution. If we could pick out FIFA stats and look at players and think that they'd perfectly sit in that United defence, Upamecano would definitely be that player. Right, Mark and Usman. This is going to be fun. United's 3rd goal. First of all, Mark, what did you see there? And what worries you about that 3rd goal? Because for me, I think that was something that potentially was waiting to happen for a good few months. I think we've been caught out on that back post quite a lot, but haven't been punished for it in recent games.
Yeah, very disappointing. We were caught out by pace and not having enough cover there, really. I got it wrong earlier. You didn't give me enough time to elaborate, but I meant for one of the chances, which fortunately they missed or hit the post or something. But it was woeful. And you know, Aaron's obviously come back. He had an okay game against Luton, and it is a worry. Again, it goes back to what we've just spoken about with the defence. We need to. I don't know what we do, but we need to get a stable pairing that we mean to go on with, really. And I absolutely agree with everyone else that Bailly should have started. I think there was a lot of talk about that. Ollie even mentioned it himself. Yeah, I'm very much looking forward for Axel to come back in. You know, they played a couple of games together, I think, at the beginning of last season, and they looked incredibly strong. And then unfortunately, he got that injury that's kept him out for so long. But very, very disappointing. And if anyone else is watching that game, they'll know how to try and carve us open, really, and we need to be very careful of that.
Yeah, Usman, I think what worried me is that Bayer was obviously on the pitch at that point. We had 3 centre-backs there. We had the 2 wing-backs. We had potentially runners playing as forwards as well on either flanks, in terms of Rashford was always going to come back and support on the left-hand side. And then we also had Bruno Fernandes on the other side, who was obviously offering a bit of cover. Fred and Matic at that point were holding, weren't they? What happened on the right-hand side for that second Brighton goal? Because let's face it, there have been moments, as I mentioned there to Mark, last season where we got caught out from the opposition's right-hand side, crossing into our back post, our right-back position, and we were never really punished for it, as I said. What for you happened, and what needs to change?
Well, firstly, the first goal is Wan-Bissaka's fault as well. Obviously, Bruno gave the resulting penalty away, but if you actually watch the goal back, Wan-Bissaka dwelling on the ball for, 10 seconds on the right wing. Eventually, he got pressed and lost the ball. He could have passed it on numerous occasions, so it was sloppy. It set the precedent, to be honest. We were very poor on the right side the whole entirety of the game. Yes, Greenwood should have came back and covered a bit more for the second goal. But in general, I just thought Wan-Bissaka was the fault for both goals, to be honest. I thought he was completely out of position. As you just mentioned, we had 5 defenders on the pitch. We had 2 DMs on the pitch. So we had Fred and Matic, in front of them. Why is Bruno the person closest to Solly March? Why is Bruno the closest? We've got 2 DMs. We've got 5 defenders. Yet Bruno, who's playing in cam in a 5-3-2, is the closest to the guy that scores. How is that right? I don't understand how that is even. Look, Fred's out of position. Matic is out of position, you can argue. But it's Wan-Bissaka's fault. If you watch the goal back, as the ball's coming in from our left wing, Wan-Bissaka's tucked into a CDM position. He needs to be in a straight line. He's not in the right position at all. If he's just in his position, it was similar to the goal against the one where Luke Shaw got blamed for. Maguire was at fault for that. He wasn't in the right position. You need to be in line with the cross. He was jogging back, and he wasn't in the right position. And it's
what about the Palace goal? Palace's first.
Yeah, sorry, Townsend's goal. Maguire, if he sniffs the danger,
that's not Maguire's fault, surely.
I'm not saying it's his fault. What I'm saying is, if he sniffs the danger, gets into the right position, he comes across and clears that. It doesn't even go past. It doesn't go past towards Luke Shaw, and it's the same here. Wan-Bissaka is completely out of position. He's basically in CDM. If you watch the still again, he's practically playing in CDM, and for some reason, Bruno, who's playing in cam, is closer to the guy that scores. I don't understand how that's even possible. Bruno's meant to be on the side of the pitch.
Do you think that's a bit of a worry, though, man? The fact that little pockets of play like that United players should be looking at, should be turned on, using their initiative, and they're not. Basically,
it's lack of concentration. Look, at the end of the day, Wan-Bissaka for me was terrible. Look, prior to March's goal, he had 5, 6, 7 chances to score. I had someone on one of our podcasts saying if it's Mane, he named a lot of other wingers that if you get that many chances, Son, Mane, if we gave him that many freedom on back stick, we would have been 4-5-0 down. Imagine that's Aubameyang coming on back stick instead of Solly March. How many chances did we need to give him? Ollie also is culpable for that goal as well, because he didn't rectify. He didn't do any some form of tactical change. You can blame other people for not tracking back as well, but Ollie should have just doubled up there. You put Bailly on. Okay, granted that would have potentially shorted it up, but for me personally, he should have just put somebody else on to sit in front of him and doubled up on March, because March was the only person getting into space, and it was inevitable that he was going to score. It was literally, like I said, what was that, the 6th time that he got in behind, and we still didn't learn a lesson. It's not good enough from too many people for me personally.
Matt, do you think that's potentially just a fitness thing with Wan-Bissaka? Because he was tremendous for the most part of last season, especially when he got in his groove. Do you think first game back, cobwebs?
Yeah, I do. I think, I mean, look, he had a game against Luton. That's him getting himself back into the swing of things. But yeah, it's his first game back. I mean, look, the lad for us since he joined defensively has been outstanding. There's absolutely no denying that. Does he get caught out every now and then positionally? Yeah, he does. Is that more likely to happen in a first Premier League game of the season? Yeah, it is more than likely. I think for me, one of the things that we need to be looking at is how easy is it for our opposition's right-hand side to be currently getting crosses into our box? Yeah. Far too easy, far too easy. Yeah, we can talk about Wan-Bissaka and we can talk about the, defensive midfielders, but, you know, we're talking about, no disrespect to Brighton, or a good side, and I rate the Lamptey lad highly. I really, really do. But they haven't had to work particularly hard on that right-hand side to put 3, 4, 5, 6 balls in our box, and we've just not dealt with it. And I honestly believe that a lot of that comes from the fact that I don't think there's an awful lot of confidence in that team of Lindelof, and therefore we are looking to try and cover for that. It's not an excuse. I do think Wan-Bissaka will improve with games. We know he's fantastically defensively, but how about we start stopping some of these crosses coming into the box if we know we're not great at dealing with them?
Yeah, some good points by both of you, really well made there. I just want to quickly drag in a comment here from Jack, who says, I agree. I think this is with you, man. I just don't think we are focused, and we just don't play well enough in defence. And also Justin here, I love Greenwood, but he doesn't trap back enough. Hopefully he would improve this as part of his game.
He's a striker, though.
As I was going to say, I don't think you need to. Yeah,
but he's a striker, though. He's never trapped back in his whole life of being a footballer. You don't expect your strikers to trap back. He's playing in a position that's alien to him. He's 19 years old. Mm-hmm. You can't expect him to trap back. That's on Ollie. You've got to, or on somebody else to say, look, Matic, come across. We don't need Greenwood to trap back. Matic, come and plug the hole, or Fred, come and plug the hole. We got 2 DMs on the page, and we had 4 defenders. You don't need Greenwood to trap back. Rashford's keep tracking back on that side. If anything, push Greenwood across when we haven't got the ball, and play a 2 up top. Mm-hmm. So it's just laziness.
I also think part of that as well, which is why there's struggles at the moment, we're going to come on to him now with Paul Pogba, is that he doesn't offer that defensive cover over on that side when Wan-Bissaka potentially needs help. Barry, let me come over to you first. Are you worried about Paul Pogba's form? I mean, I know we've all spoken about fitness, and as Rob said earlier on, rightly, we're going to see players, we're going to see them peak. We're going to see them have good games and bad games. We're going to see teams play differently as every game goes on because of the strange fitness regime they're all in and the strange state of fitness they're in. But are you worried about Paul Pogba's start to the season, Barry?
Yeah, I have to say I am worried. Possibly a bit of a contentious comment. When it came to team selection against Brighton, I think United would have been better suited with a midfield diamond, with 4 in the midfield, as opposed to the 4-2-3-1, but be that as it may. We speak about Pogba, that on his day, he's a world-class midfielder. I think, unfortunately, when you analyse his performances at United over the seasons, there have not been that many games that he's grabbed by the scruff of the neck, but he has put in some amazing performances and his stats have been good. But he looks way off the pace to me at the moment. The guy has had COVID. He hasn't been able to train for a couple of weeks. And I find it strange that Ollie has started with him. I know he needs match fitness, but I don't think this is the appropriate way to give him match fitness. But of course, I, like most of us, am an armchair critic. I think that for me, he's best linking with the front runners and getting into the opposition box, making runs, not playing as a defensive midfielder. He's a bit lazy in the tackle. He looks languid. And he's got this habit of allowing the ball to go across him with his back to the opposition. He does that for me a little bit too often. The finest exponent of that used to be Michael Carrick, in fact, who had that down to a T. But Pogba, I don't know, we're struggling to find what his best position is. And I'd like to see him in a bit more of an advanced role. But if you advance him up the field, you've then only got Matic or McTominay or Fred as the DM. And I don't know that that's enough in terms of protecting the back 4 at the moment. So it's a conundrum for the coaching staff. And that is why, I think Ollie needs to earn his £7.5 million a season by solving that problem for us and not leaving it for this panel to solve.
Although we'll find a way, Barry. We'll find a way. Abdel's been on as man. You can't. No, sorry, he hasn't. That wasn't the right one. That was the wrong one. There's a tactical reason for that. Greenwood needs to track back, or he doesn't play. I strongly disagree with us, man. The system requires it. To be fair, I don't think we were saying that he shouldn't be tracking back. What we were trying to say was the fact that he's a number,
and we don't. He's a striker.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and Usman, it's also put here, sorry, that you can't ask one of the DMs to cover or you create another problem in midfield by leaving a man free. But I think this is what we're all really confused about, the way that we're sort of playing, because it seems like, there's too many spaces. There's too many square pegs in round holes. That's a saying, isn't it? So it's not all flowing properly. We can understand and see where he wants to go, and we completely understand it. But I think due to fitness or due to a lack of games together, there seems to just not be a coherent coherent flow to the way we're trying to play. I hope that comes across right. I'm not sure if it did or didn't, but still. Let me just come to a few comments on Pogba here, Rob, and then I'm going to hand over to you on this question. Agree Van der Beek should start and Pogba drip fed back in. Suzanne says, I think Van der Beek should have started in place of Pogba. Charlie says, it's not mincing his words here. To be honest, Pogba looks absolutely atrocious there from Charlie. Not happy with Pogba's performances at all. So, Rob, heard a bit from Barry there. How do we solve a problem like Paul Pogba this early on in the season?
Well, first of all, I'm not concerned about Paul Pogba at all. He's had COVID, he's not trained, and this is where you are. Any footballer would struggle at the moment. I think when we talk about systems and where Pogba plays, we have to look at what Ole wants to do with a football club. He wants to play 4-2-3-1, we know that. And that means that you have certain jobs in the team where certain players do certain things. So, for instance, in a 4-2-3-1, Greenwood and Rashford shouldn't really track back. That's not really the shape of the team. That would leave Martial on his own with a mile of space. What you want with Paul Pogba is, I keep saying this, is to play that kind of quarterback role. So if he's playing there with someone else in a double pivot, the ball gets given to him and he quickly sets off the attack. Now, we know he's defensively not fantastic, but most modern number sixes aren't. What they're there for is to intercept the ball and get the ball going in the right direction. So that's really what Ole tries to do with Pogba. That's what Pogba likes to do. That's where Pogba played when he won a World Cup not so long ago, 2 years ago, in that pivot. And he gets the ball off and he gets it going quickly. I don't think you can really judge him until we're maybe 10, 15, 20 games into the season and we're seeing what his fitness levels are like. You've got to remember he's just had two of the worst injuries of his career and he's still coming back from that. We saw Rashford struggle as well because he had an injury and was recovering over a long period. So calm about Paul Pogba. He's going to sign a new contract. I think we've heard that quite consistently from his people. And I think things will be fine going forward. I think bringing Van der Beek gives you another option in that midfield. And it's a case of just letting Pogba settle down and get his fitness back.
I'm completely with you. I think we're seeing the happiest Paul Pogba and the most comfortable Paul Pogba at Manchester United that we've ever seen, to be quite honest with you. And I think he's just unfortunate because, as you say, he's been hindered with the injuries and now fitness, and it's not been the best start to a season for him because of that. Hampton, appreciate you getting in touch, mate. We love all comments on the channel, even if personally I don't agree, but I'm going to hand this one over to Mark anyway. There seems to always be a blame culture and a reason around Pogba when it comes to potentially putting in some bad performances. Pogba not bothered about United. He just wants to cut his hair and make stupid videos and collect 300k. As I've just mentioned a minute ago, and I think as the guys have just hit on in terms of Pogba and the reason why he might not be performing right now, Mark, we are seeing, aren't we? I'm not just imagining this, the happiest Paul Pogba we've probably seen at the club since he rejoined.
Yeah, I'd absolutely agree with that. If the reports are to be believed that he's going to sign a contract, then it can only mean that he is happy. Obviously, Paul's come in to want to win trophies, as we all want Manchester United to do. So I can understand, if he sees more than what we do with the unrest and what happens above, then it's all going to come out in the players too. So hopefully he does sign that contract. I know we've seen it many times, probably not enough. He is a world-class midfielder. I feel like he was very laboured on Saturday. He shouldn't have been anywhere near the team. Donny's been probably one of the best players for us other than Matic so far, and he should have started. I don't think Pogba should be anywhere near the team. And then, as Barry mentioned, we could have drip-fed him into the team against Brighton on Wednesday, is it? He shouldn't have been anywhere near the team. And I think he was trying to play a Matic role, and Matic was trying to play a Pogba role, and it just wasn't really working out. And then Matic would obviously clear up after everything else. So hopefully he signs that contract. We need him to stay. We need the best players in the world, don't we? And to lose someone like him on his day, he's an incredible player, and we need to keep players like that.
It's interesting you say about his position. Reece has jumped on and gone play 4-3-3. Matic or Van der Beek as the defensive midfielder. I don't think Van der Beek's like a holding, so to speak, sweeper type of midfielder like that, to be honest. But okay, fair enough. And he said Pogba, Bruno as the 8 and Pogba on the left, which he is best at. I just don't want to bring Fernandes back personally, because I feel like sometimes, because he really wants to get hold of the ball, he runs too much around everywhere else where he shouldn't be, just to try and get. I think at one point the other day, a bad pass was played, and I think it missed Maguire or something. And the person who went back to collect the ball by the corner flag in our half was Bruno Fernandes, and that's where he shouldn't be. But I can see what you're saying that, because it's to accommodate Paul Pogba. I mean, Keane, I'm going to come over to you with a final point on Paul Pogba, actually. Suzanne makes a good point here in terms of inconsistency. We've seen that since he's rejoined United. But again, we've all said, and I know people might feel like we're making excuses for him here because of the wage packet, because of how popular he is, etc., and how good he is as well. But he has sort of been inconsistent. And we do want to see a full firing, happy, as we mentioned a second ago, Paul Pogba this season, don't we? Because if he does, he'll be a driving force in this team and for us to achieve what we want to.
Yeah, like I think, look, it's integral for us to have a happy Paul Pogba at the club, because a happy Paul Pogba means a driven Paul Pogba, and Paul Pogba who has ambition to win. You look at it, Paul Pogba's after coming back from COVID-19, which is a very serious thing. He's had a lack of weeks of training. He's lacking match fitness. You need Paul Pogba fully fit and firing. Now, I think this week against Brighton in the midweek game will be a good chance for him to get more match fitness in. Maybe give him about 60 minutes and, try getting back sharp. Like, again, look, people that say that Van de Beek should have started, and it's debatable. But again, like a player of quality of Paul Pogba, can you really leave him on the bench? Like, if we lose that game and Paul Pogba is on the bench, there's headlines about Ollie then, why didn't he select Paul Pogba? You have to look at the pros and cons of the situation. But for me, Paul Pogba has to stay in the team, has to get more minutes, and hopefully we can push on.
Yeah, 100%. Good points made all around. Thank you for that, guys. Really, really appreciate it. So let's move on, shall we? Have we already 2 players we should be pushing to get out the door potentially in the next week? Because it'd be good for us to jump over to those in a second. It should, to be fair, we could probably do up to 10, I think, to be fair, looking at this squad. But I think we're all pretty much agreed that United are really only in for 2 players now, if we're actually in for them, and that's Tellez and Sancho, right? We don't think there's going to be any surprise faces. We either get those 2 or we don't get anyone. Or are we going to see on deadline day, there's a car coming into Carrington. Oh my God, it's Josh King. I can't wait. I'm really excited about this. But then, to be honest, Rob, actually, I want to bring this one over to you, mate, because you are very much a voice of wisdom, and I very much like the way that you look at different views and different opinions. I'm slightly worried that Igalo wasn't even on the bench at the weekend. So the backup striking position is an option, isn't it, Rob? It is an option.
Giroud.
It's a worry, sorry, not an option.
Look, we're going into the last week of the window, and this is when all the shopping goes crazy. So I think we might see a surprise face jump in there, someone we've not even spoken about. United are looking at Tellez, are looking at Sancho. Everybody knows this. But I do think with United, they are well aware that they need backups, and they will be trying to get rid of players as well. So it could be a kind of strange mix in the last week in terms of rumours. I know it always is with Manchester United anyway. But I wouldn't be surprised if we do see a surprise name come in. I think Igalo is there till January, so I don't see United bringing in a centre-forward, and I don't think that they feel that they need a centre-forward as it stands. That's a future concern. But I still think with United, you could argue for someone, a right winger, to come in, an auxiliary player. You've got players like Douglas Costa being shopped around Europe on loan. It could happen, you just don't know. So it's going to be an interesting last week.
Yeah, it is going to be an interesting last week. Let's talk about some players coming in quickly, and we'll do this bit really quickly because I want to get to every single one of you 2 players who we have to just completely get out the door this week. Mark, let me come over. Actually, no, let's come to Matt first quickly. Matt, will we sign Jadon Sancho? Oh my God, it's like $1 million question.
I think we will. I think we will. I think it very much plays into the club's hands to drag this one out. When I say the club, I mean the bean counters' hands to drag this one out. The more it gets dragged out, the more clicks it creates, the more attention is brought to the club. And then the other thing to think about is the longer we leave the 108 million in the bank, the more interest we're earning on it. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if it happened. I feel confident it will. I hope they've not put all their eggs in one basket and then they don't get it over the line, because I think they'll be asking for trouble. But I just see it being one of those that just drags out and out for the reasons that I've just mentioned above. And the bean counters will be happy with that.
Yeah, with that interest, to be fair, in the bank at the moment, they're probably only going to make 10p off of it. So I don't know why they didn't bloody pay it up in the first place. Anyone on here, just quickly go on an opposition opinion? Anyone think that we won't sign Sancho?
I think we'll finally sign Wesley Sneijder this transfer window.
Barry, just as I wanted a really mature and honest and thoughtful opinion, you come out with that one, mate. Appreciate that, mate. Cheers. Always a voice of reasoning. I think the Sancho one's going to be really interesting because I think actually we've heard so many reports from different media outlets and reporters. It's going to be interesting, actually, to sort of see from that fence as well who's actually got it right this window, because there is a big conflict at the moment and a difference in briefings. Today, I've seen United are going to go back in. I think Howard Nurse has put out a little teaser tweet in response to someone saying that United are going to go back in with a serious bid this week that Dortmund will listen to. And then I think Simon Stoner, I think works for the exact same outlet, said that Dortmund are still saying that actually the deadline was on the 10th of August, and we're not really entertaining any offers. So we're just going to have to wait and see. Yeah, we're just going to have to wait and see. Do you know what, Usman? We'll come to you now, mate. I want to quickly hear your thoughts on, if we don't get Sancho this week, do we go out and buy a Sancho alternative on that right wing position?
Obviously, as the guys have said, it seems like they've put all their eggs in one basket regarding Sancho. For me personally, we definitely need somebody for this season. There's no way we can rely on Greenwood, Rashford and Martial for the duration of the season. Just to put that in context, if one of them three get injured, it means Jesse Lingard or Dan James are starting. So, God forbid if someone gets a serious injury, one of the front three, just say they're out for 2 months.
Man, breaking news. Fabrizio Romano has just tweeted Alex Telles and Man United have found an agreement tonight on the last details with Porto. United also have a plan B in case it doesn't go through. Sancho still the same situation. Dortmund are standing still, 120 million euros or nothing. Sorry to break into you, buddy.
I saw it 5 minutes when one of the other lads were talking. But that's been the case for a while now. I don't think the personal terms have been issues if we're going to pay the money. But yeah, coming back to Sancho, I think we should get Sarr. I think Kingsley Coleman might be an option as well, because obviously I don't think he's going to get much game time, and obviously he's a fantastic player as well. So there are options out there. Of course, I do want Sancho, but it just depends if you pay the money. For me, I'd probably go for Sarr if I was putting money down for someone.
Yeah, and to be honest, it would be an interesting signing. But like I said the other day, if we go in for someone like Sarr, I wouldn't expect United going back in for Sancho next season, because again, he's a young lad who we need to develop. And surely, if we're going for,
we're not going to get the Sanchos next season.
Yeah, well, I think that's the. Oh no, I completely agree. I do completely agree with you. But I wonder if the people at the club actually believe that. That's my worry. If they're thinking of leaving it off this summer and going back into a bidding war next summer and actually flexing their muscles, if people are back into that, who knows anyway. Quick reaction there. Let's come to you, Keane, on the Telles stuff. Do you expect to see Telles join United?
Well, I hope so. He'd be a very good addition to this United team. Like, he's a very progressive left back. He's a very attacking left back. And I think sometimes in our attack in kind of recent weeks and recent games, kind of towards the end of the season and start of this season, we're kind of seeing the attack on the left-hand side become congested almost. Like, you see Luke Shaw, I like Luke Shaw, he's one of my favourite players. But I find when he comes down that left-hand side, he comes inside, which also Rashford comes inside, trying to be a playmaker, and we don't have anyone to provide that overlap on that left-hand side to get the ball into the box to the likes of a Martial or to the likes of a Greenwood. With Alex Telles, we get that because he's a very progressive left-back. He does bomb on the overlap, kind of similar to what an Andy Robertson does. And a player like him would add kind of extra balance to our squad.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting with that left-back position. Mark, do you think Alex... Oh, we've had this conversation before, but we jump into it now because everyone's talking to it anyway. Is Alex Telles or Plan B, whoever... Is there any other left-backs out there? I don't know.
Alex left-back, perhaps. I can't remember.
Tagliafico. Is he Tagliafico?
Do you know what, though? This comes back to the conversation we were having with Telles. Usman, you put up a great argument. I've watched some more stuff on him. I think you're right. He's good at doing the things that you mentioned that he was good at. For me, though, I still feel like, but this is because I'm obsessed with Luca Digne. I'd love to have him at United's left back. I think he just hasn't hit his ceiling yet, and he's a fantastic player that I'll go and spend the money on. But again, if we're looking for a cheap, what United think is a £12 million fix, which I don't understand how they think he's definitely worth more than that anyway, and how they think they're going to get him for that,
I don't know. He's not got much time with his contract. I think he's got a couple of months.
It's still going to be interesting, though, isn't it? I mean, what do you reckon, Mark, anyway? Alex Telles, is he the fit? And also, do you think that we are desperate to bring in a left back now?
Yeah, we definitely need a left back. We've obviously got Brandon. I said many times, push him over to the right. We've got no competition for Luke, and obviously we can't be reliant on Luke. He gets too many injuries. I actually rate him. I think I said the other week, it's no coincidence that when he was injured against West Ham, we then started to falter post-lockdown. I actually think defensively he's okay, but he's not good enough going forward. He was sort of driving forward a bit more in Saturday's game yesterday. So I was quite pleased to see that, but he's not going to be able to do that consistently. Telles, I think it was 11 goals, 8 assists last season in the Portuguese league. Granted, Portuguese league, a bit debatable, but I think he's very attack-minded and he's not too bad going back and defending either. But I think if we're always on the front foot down that left-hand side, perhaps we wouldn't need to do so much defending. So I think that could be one of the reasons why. But we definitely need competition. We need to push Luke Shaw as well and have some stability there.
Just so you guys know as well, Gonçalo Lopez, who's a Portuguese journalist, has tweeted that United had a €15 million offer for Alex Telles this evening, rejected. So there we go. That's what we're talking about in terms of the £12 million fee. Clearly, Porto are not keen on that price. Let's go over to some of these comments. Charlie's also said Digne. James has said, good point on his channel, that he's very much an attacking left back and we don't have the pace in defence to cover him when the ball comes back. Charlie says Luke Shaw is brilliant in my opinion. Just nice to have some depth in that position. Yeah, I do agree. I think depth is really important. You need to have two really good players to compete with each other to get the best out of each other. So I think either way, if we're seeing the best Luke Shaw or the best Alex Telles, it's better than seeing an okay Luke Shaw because we've got no other options. So that's what we want to see. We want to see them push each other. And hello to Wilson says, saw on Twitter, Fab, that Lazio negotiating with United over Pereira. Dan James could be going to Leeds, maybe loan or permanent, and at least that clears the wage bill. Look, let's have a chat now, shall we, about players going out, because I know we've only got about 10 minutes. Actually, quickly, just before, last word on this, Barry. You are, as I said, usually the word of wisdom. 90% of the time anyway, as we found out on this show. Telles and Sancho, is that a good end to a transfer window for you?
Yes.
Brilliant. I love it. That's all I needed to know. And now, Barry, two players we need to clear out this week. Two players who you want to... Oh, my God, actually, I know one of these are going to be already. I actually know two of them.
You're wrong. The two that need to go are Jones and Rojo. We need to clear out the centre-back deadwood. Unfortunately, as has been mentioned on the show tonight, there are a lot more than two that need to go. But if there are two, I think Jones and Rojo, quite frankly, they're stealing a living at the club. Rojo is a loose cannon. He might be aggressive, but he's got a yellow or red card in him every game, prone to errors. And as for Phil Jones, I mean, look, the guy's probably been very unlucky with injuries, but there's no place for him at the club, unfortunately. And they are the two that would be on my hit list to get out. I think that our inimitable number 14, as much as I would like to see him leaving the club, if we don't sign a right winger, we do need to have some bodies that can play in that role. And, you know, unfortunately, I think that he would be the go-to guy. But the centre-backs are what we need to clear out, because I think we've got 8 or 9 of them, and it's way too many.
Barry, when Phil Jones stays and he gets his testimonial after this season, me and you are going, mate.
Without
me and you are going. We'll be the first people there, front row.
Yeah. He's actually, I got a letter from him saying that we'll have tickets in the director's box for that.
Well, I'm definitely coming with you then, not the other way around. I want to get in that director's box. Reese says Rojo, Jones, Pereira close to leaving, apparently, meaning Pereira. Lingard and Matter, to be honest, they have to go as well. Suzanne says Jones and Rojo need to go. I just want to quickly come back to a comment here from Kieran that we was talking about earlier on. Depth is really important. And Russell also saying here, bringing in Telles, like you guys have said, will also free up Brandon to be back up for right back. Guys, if you're watching right now, smash a like on this video, get subscribed to the channel. We've got a transfer special tomorrow morning coming out, as we'll be counting down 1 week till the window closes. Going to be talking about loads of transfer stuff, but right now the guys are talking about the 2 players that need to go before the end of the week. Get yours in the comments. Just 2 players. If we can only get rid of 2, who are they? Who have to go? Mark, let's come over to you.
Yeah, Pereira. I don't think he's got a place in the team. We've read quite a few times over the last couple of months that United need to gain some funds, get rid of players in order to potentially put the Sancho deal through. And I think if Pereira can go on loan there, have a good season with Lazio, it's a lot slower, so I think it would be better for his game. And then get 27 million euros at the end of it. I think that's quite incredible business, and perhaps that's some of the money that can be used towards Sancho. For me, Chris Smalling as well. I'd rather Phil Jones goes, but I don't think he's going to be going anywhere, and I don't think we'd get much of a fee for him either. Smalling's obviously done really well in Italy, and I think it would be a good opportunity for both an Italian club and United to gain some more funds for Sancho again, or whoever that may be. So those are my 2, I think.
I think what's great is I saw some people on Twitter saying, just if Roma had a big defender like Chris Smalling today, they might have stopped Ronaldo from scoring. You really think Smalling's going to get close to Ronaldo? I mean, come on. He might have had a good season last year. It doesn't make him the best centre-back in the world. Come on. I think it's interesting about the Andreas Pereira deal. I think the guy's going to go into more detail on the transfer show tomorrow. But from what I read, it's again, there's loads of stuff out there. Who knows what to believe? It's going to be a definite £10 million obligation, but then the 27 million euros depends on performance or something. So it's a really weird one.
Basically.
Well, basically, yeah.
And 10% clause.
Yeah, 10% sell on as well if they sell him, which is again, it's a weird one. You know, when they get £2.50 for him, we'll get 25p. Right, Keane, what do you reckon? Two players who definitely have to leave before the end of next week.
Well, do you know what? I actually had marks there. I had Smalling and Andreas Pereira wrote down, but I'm going to throw a spanner into the works because we know Andreas is going. I'm going to say Diogo Dalot. I think at the moment, Ollie doesn't fancy him at the moment. So I think he needs to leave for his own development. I think, look, when he came into the team, he did show a bit of promise, but I think he fancies Brandon Williams and Fosu Mensah and Aaron Wan-Bissaka ahead of him in that kind of right-back role. So he doesn't really have a future there if Ollie doesn't fancy him. So he's best off to go and try to get some games somewhere else and try fulfill his potential that he did show early on in his United career. And then the other person I had there was Smalling. Smalling again, look, he done well with Roma last year, and it looks like, again, he doesn't have a future at Man United, and he's on £70,000 a week. So if we can get him off the wage, we'll get a decent transfer fee for him. Again, as the lad said, it can contribute to a Sancho or an Alex Telles or potential more incomings that will be coming in.
Reece, I love you, mate, but no, sorry, not for me. Jamie says Smalling and Pereira, maybe Dalot as well. Agreeing with you there, Keane. Matt says Smalling and the other crap centre halves, which more or less echoes what Barry was saying. Russell, Andreas and Jones. Reece also says Jones and Pereira as well. Matt should go into coaching at United, is what Suzanne's saying there. Rob, what about you? If we can only get two out the door by next Monday, who definitely need to get on that aeroplane or bus and head somewhere else?
Well, there'll be defenders for me, and I think that's what Manchester United are trying to do. I think we'll probably lose Rojo and Smalling. I think that's what we're hearing at the moment. They're two players that Ole isn't interested in. They're both training away from the main group as it stands, so they have no future at Manchester United. There's other players as well. Like I think Jesse Lingard's on his way out. You know, he got a new agent. We all know who he is, Mino Raiola. And he's looking for a move, so I think that he'll be gone. And I also do think Dalot will be gone, another player who's looking for game time. Never really worked out at Manchester United despite all the potential and the few chances that he's had. But I think he'll be going back to Portugal from what we hear.
Yeah, I think it's interesting here. Max says Dalot on loan, still young, there is potential. Not sure why it wouldn't work or why it didn't work out for him. I just think it's options, to be honest. And I don't think he has ever forced his way into the team properly or opened eyes, really. And I just think if he's not going to play this year, then if you get 20 million for him now, it's not really a slap in the face, is it? You've made your money back, and I think potentially a little bit more as well. Usman, if you can only get two out the door, who are they?
Well, it's hard to choose because I've got about 8 in my head. So I'm just going to say Jones because I can't stand the guy. Honest to God, I've never known a person to steal a living as much as Phil Jones. Like, my last memory of him is giving that penalty away for Chelsea in the cup, like against Hazard when he got absolutely ripped apart. So Jones needs to get out of the club.
Can I give you another one to talk about? Because you'll take this on the head. Like it. Yeah, well, I was going to say, what about Romero? What about Sergio Romero?
To be fair, that's a good shot. I completely forgot he's still at the club. I forgot he's still here. To be honest, I thought he's gone. He's not going to play at all, is he? I suppose you could say Romero, but I'm going to say Jones and Rojo. Rojo, for obvious reasons, he'll probably get a red card in the next couple of games. Although I heard a stat that he's never got one at the club, which is ridiculous. It has to be Rojo and Jones. We've got too many centre-backs. Bring Mengi through, allow him to be 5th or 4th choice. And obviously bring Twan-Sebi through. Hopefully he's fit as well. And it's a no-brainer for me, really. I
don't think even Jones will make it for a blooming medical at the moment, to be quite honest with you. Reece goes Smalling and Pereira for me, wages and money whilst they're still of value. And also, I actually think if we're looking at the most likely deals to be done, it's Smalling and Pereira, tier A. Tier B is probably Romero and Dalot. And then you've probably got the likes of Rojo. Yeah, maybe Lingard. And then you've got Rojo, who I think he'll probably end up being released and let go on a free towards the end of the window if someone's interested in him. And again, Phil Jones is probably another one of those. But Matt, final thoughts from you, mate. Players who we should be seeing out of Carrington by Monday.
Yeah, I went for Pereira and Romero, if I'm honest with you guys. I think Pereira technically is decent. Decision making's really poor. I think a slower league will suit him far, far better, as has been mentioned. Should bring in some funds eventually as well. And then Romero as well. You know, he's on a decent wedge for us, and he just isn't going to play. You know, we've given Dino the deal, and he's now going to be competing with David De Gea for the number 1 spot. But I think Romero's been a fantastic servant for us. I don't think he's ever let us down, and I personally think we should be getting a deal done for him and getting him off to play some football. And again, you know, we should get some decent money for him, and we should save some money on the wage bill. So, but those two for me.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, guys. Those are really good points. And you know what I said earlier on about getting wisdom on the channel? Tomorrow morning, hosting the transfer show, our first today at United of the Week, is a guy called Joe O'Neill.
Oh,
and he
lost it there.
has just tweeted, Romero needs to go. Lovely beard, but we need to sell our third choice goalkeeper and use the money to give Phil Jones a pay rise. Those are the contributions we just love on this channel. If you want a hosting gig, talk more like this guy. Just down there. There we go. There. I was actually pointing at Usman then. I actually meant Joe. Sorry, Usman.
I was shaking my head and it was a disapproval, Dory.
Just one last comment I want to hit on. Jamie goes, Daniel James to Leeds on loan. Again.
No,
not for me.
Only if Sancho comes.
Only if Sancho comes.
That's what will happen.
Agreed.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Interesting. It's going to be an interesting final week, and hopefully we'll see all these guys on the channel as the final week towards the transfer window progresses. Usman, Mark, Keane, Rob, Matt, Barry, thank you for joining us on Wall of Reds. The biggest United fan panel show. Loads of you watching tonight. If you've made it to this point and you watched from the very start, well done. I don't know how you did it, but smash that like button, hit that subscribe button. Let's get to 1.2k. And of course, this week we'll have your transfer goodness, Brighton preview on the way as well for the Carabao Cup, and loads more ahead of the game against Spurs the coming weekend. Take it easy, guys. Have a good evening, and we'll see you on Wall of Reds next Sunday at 10 o'clock. Peace.
Have a good one, lads.